This is the hardest rebuild I've ever attempted on NCAA Football 14, and I can't end the video until I win a championship, but I might never get to that point. I'm taking over App State, which might not sound too bad, but I decided to make everybody on their team a 0 overall, and then I put them in a super conference with the best colleges. I'm not allowed to ever schedule an FCS school for an easy win, and I have to start as a level 1 head coach, restarting there every single time that I get fired. The school prestige is set at its lowest, and I can only recruit 1-star players until we become a 2-star program. Then I can go after 2 stars, and as we go up in prestige, I can go after better recruits. But this player progression tool will make it very hard to improve because it can cause our players to lose overalls or not progress in the off season. If I hadn't already set the Mountaineers up for failure though, I can only play up to 3 regular season games a year, and I'm giving myself just 12 years to win it all. If I can't, I'll be giving away a copy of College Football 25 to a random commenter, and either way, this video and rebuild won't end until I get App State a national championship. Alright, so I know things are going to be difficult. We have to start in recruiting, and it looks like there's just some 55 overall 1-stars to go after. But the one thing I've already figured out is we could go after JUCO players like this guy, and that's who I'm going to target early on, but because I'm a level 1 head coach, I can't fully scout guys. We are set up for disaster for a long time, so our schedule doesn't even matter. And apparently 11 overall is the lowest a team can be, because every single player on our roster is starting at a 0. It should be no surprise that for the next 4 years, we're supposed to be the worst team in the country. And not only is the SEC already brutal, but I made sure to put the hardest 7 teams in our division. I don't know which of these 1-stars are the best players since we can't fully scout them, so I'm just going to go after the highest overalls for now. And I don't think there's going to be any reason to show game results as we get through the season. We just had 5 total yards of offense, and our quarterback went 0 for 32, and it's only going to get worse from here. My main focus is just going to be finding players that other schools aren't going after, so anything that we're in competition for, I might pull out of. And I can't believe we just lost 122 to 0. I think the hardest part about this challenge is there are players that are better than a 1-star recruit that want to come to our school, but until that team prestige goes up to 2 stars, we're not going to be able to go after 2-star recruits, and then 3 stars after that. I think you all get the pattern, but whenever we're playing tough opponents, we're not going to beat them. It's simply going to be a cycle of being terrible for a long time, but at least whenever you go after 1-star prospects, it's pretty easy to get them. And just out of curiosity, I do want to play with this team. What I'm going to do is schedule every single recruit for a visit against Temple, and I need to somehow start leveling up because we're not even close to level 2, and that's how I improve my scouting. Maybe hopping into a couple games will help with that, even if we're averaging negative 10 yards per game on offense. And I have never seen stats like this before. If I'm able to complete this rebuild, I've officially beaten NCAA Football 14. And to be honest, it's almost impossible to do anything when everybody has 0 speed. I don't know what I was expecting. We have no time in the pocket, and there's no way to run the football because everyone's so slow, which means we always get stuck on 3rd down and longs, and that pass was so off target. I think you all can see what's about to happen, and it was not pretty. I'm not hopping into another one for a while. We did get our first signings though, bringing on a punter, a fullback, and then a ton of JUCOs that are probably just going to be here for a couple years. And the most annoying part is I never scouted them, so I don't know how good they actually are. After losing by 118 points though, I finally leveled up, which means we now have level 2 scouting. So that's super useful. It unveils almost 50% of their stats at once, and that means I've been able to figure out in 2 weeks how good every single player is. Now there is one weird limit that we have to deal with, and that's that you can only sign 25 players in a class. So as we continue to sign every single player that we target, I'm gonna have to pull one of these guys off of our board, and I think it has to be a halfback. There's really nothing too exciting that's gonna happen the rest of the year. We're just gonna continue to lose over and over, and I am definitely giving away a copy of College Football 25. There's no way that I'm able to win a championship in 12 seasons. I mean, we just played terribly all year, with our starting quarterback completing one of his 286 pass attempts for 3 yards. 27 interceptions too means only 2 receivers caught a pass, and rushing wise our stats weren't as embarrassing, but as a team everything was, because 47 sacks caused us to have negative yards on offense all year, and defensively teams averaged over 100 points per game against us. The worst part is I finally leveled up again, which means I can fully scout players in 1 week, but because we're so bad, I'm definitely going to get fired, and then I have to restart my head coach all over again, but not before I go through and scout every single one of these guys that's on our board. I'm actually really happy with how things turned out because guys like Preston Pennington should be decent for us at QB, but I got fired like I expected I would, so we're back to not being able to scout any prospects. Then when it comes to players leaving, I don't even care that these 0 overalls are gone, and I will gladly take any transfers that we can get. It's fully random on this game, but it's our one way around only going after 1-star prospects, and we're still going to find decent JUCOs like Jeremy Curry, but the problem is our recruiting class is always going to be ranked down here at 126, and no matter how good these players are, they can't compete in the best conference in the country. I've already decided that all these 0 overalls I'm moving over to fullback so we can just cut them, get rid of them off the team, and in their place we'll get walk-ons that have a little bit better speed, but we need to get some wide receivers. I didn't recruit a single one, so Melvin Hall is also going over there, and this punter I found is actually going to be moved over to kicker for us. Now we're over to training results, where I'm using this mod to make player progression realistic, and as you can see, the tight end that transferred in only went up by 1 overall. Then our roster got filled in with some walk-ons, and I can't complain about a wide receiver with 94 speed, but everything else about him is terrible, like his 52 catching. I'm really hoping over time some of these big schools become bad because they're going to beat up on each other every season, and that might take a very long time, but it's the only way that we're ever going to win a game and then continue to improve. Redshirt wise, since these guys are JUCOs, it's also probably smart to just make sure that we sit them for as long as we can, because with a conference rank at 3.8, we're not winning a single game again, and with all the walk-ons on this roster, I have no idea what positions we need to fill. I'll probably start with the 1-stars that are already interested in coming here, but remember, I can't even scout them, and I've started to search by 40 time just to see if there's any hidden gems. What blows my mind is we're so terrible, some of these 1-stars have deal breakers on our school, and as a team that's coming in as a 37 overall, I can guarantee we're going to be stuck recruiting 1-stars for a while, but why are we projected to be better than those 2 colleges? I don't understand that at all, but all the top players on our board this season are of course going to be JUCOs, and we only lost by 70 instead of 130. By week 4, we still haven't picked up a win, and New Mexico still almost has double our overall, but if there's any chance we come out on top of something, it's this, and that was not pretty, but we scored 7 points. Whoever Nichols is the first player to score a touchdown in this rebuild for us, and he's a 3rd stringer but a 60 overall, so I must have recruited him last year. His efforts convinced 2 linebackers to join the team, but Troy's really going after 55 overalls, and they can steal guys like that because I want these high overall 1-star JUCOs. Another team I threw on our schedule is Army, so I was really trying with the non-conference games to give us any chance at getting a win, but I doubt it's ever going to happen, and our last chance for it to is here against Nevada, where they beat us by 55. That's really no different than what teams like USC are doing to us, and I have eventually gotten up to a level 3 in scouting, but I'm 100% getting fired again, so I'm just going to figure out how good all the prospects that I've already signed really are. To my surprise, there was a plus 10 gym with this JUCO center, so I feel like I did a pretty good job, and I even left open 2 of our 25 scholarships for transfers. Once things get finalized, because we only can sign 1-stars, it will be the worst class in the country again, and even if we're not in the race for it, I'm always going to be curious who's winning our conference just because it's a combination of all of the best colleges. I'm taking it as a victory that John Nichols threw for a touchdown pass, and look at that, we had 2 players with over 150 rushing yards. Julian Smith is a wide receiver with 40 route running though, so we might make him a running back. And look at these passing stats, we had multiple guys with a lot of catches. Even if I got fired again, we took a big step forward, and maybe not with wins, but at least offensively. That didn't stop 2 players from entering the transfer portal though, including one of our wide receivers I redshirted, and it would have been so nice to have this freshman for 4 years. As a replacement though, we got a free safety and then another receiver from Middle Tennessee State, so it all worked out, and I get to decide what to do with the worst class in the country. Since we redshirted everybody last year, I think I'm actually going to start most of these players this season, and I should have been playing around with these walk-ons more, because when I moved Julian Smith to running back, he's a 58. I finally found somebody I can use as a user with Bob Cooper at linebacker, and we have so many cornerbacks that one of these guys could start as a strong safety. There's even athletes I don't know what to do with, but Kenny Brown's a 69 overall QB, and then Tommy Gooden's just another player that I'm able to move over to linebacker. We're in a much better spot now that we have a foundation, but our real issue is going to be building off of this because our players didn't improve much and there's some regression. I'm going to start cutting players that aren't of use to us, and even though John Nichols was, he is now gone, which means it's time for somebody new to take over, and that's got to be Preston Pennington. We've 2 years with a player that has 86 throw power, 83 throw accuracy, and I'm going to attempt to get our first win of the rebuild in week 7 against Army. As for recruiting, we only have 3 seniors but 29 juniors, so we have to start to prepare for that, and I'm just going to do my best to find the strongest and fastest players in the country. If we're ever going to win a game in this conference, we're going to have to figure out something that helps us, because even if we're somehow supposed to be better than these 3 schools, long term that is not true, and a 60 overall just isn't good enough. I think in order to jump up to a 2-star prestige, you have to at least win 6 games, and that's not happening against some of these teams. There's no purpose to me even playing these games, maybe against the smaller schools, and even though Georgia's 0-2, they're coming in at a 91 overall, so all these matchups are a lost cause. We're just going to advance to week 7 against Army, where I really want to beat them. I mean, they're better than us, but only by 12 overalls, and I'm still going to make it a visit week for the players that haven't committed yet, but most of the guys that I really wanted already did, and surprisingly, Ryan Spence is not a JUCO like the rest of them. Having somebody around for 4 years instead of 2 is a big difference, so those high high overall 1-stars are the guys that I have to start finding, but I can't do that unless I don't get fired, and the only way to not get fired is to win. I'm not going to sit here and act like Preston Pennington's the best player in the country, but we are moving it down the field. We've already scored 7, and in the 2 years that we have him here, we have to take advantage of that. With time winding down in the half, we're hoping to reach the end zone again, and Marquez Moore just had a beautiful catch to put us up by 7. We'd missed the extra point, but that's why we're going for it on 4th down in this position later on in the game. And after taking back-to-back sacks, things aren't looking great for us, but that should put us in field goal range. I'm hoping that we can hit this to go up 16-7, and we really need our defense to step up on 3rd and 9. They have nowhere to go, and we should have picked that ball off. It's really disappointing we didn't come away with it, but at the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is get this program its first win in this rebuild, and I think I've done that as we try to run out the rest of the time with Chad Pollard. No matter what happens on 3rd and goal, we're already in field goal range, but this one's over, and it feels good to finally come out on top of something. To be honest, it could have taken us even longer than this, but now that we beat somebody, I can fully scout players midway through the year, and there's a chance that I won't get fired for the first time. I am a little surprised to see us in some tighter competitions for a couple of these JUCOs though, and I know we're about to return back to losing, but we might win our first road game next week. It's Bowling Green, so I'm gonna hop into that too, and we'll see how things play out. After getting our first win, I'm honestly feeling pretty confident, but let's just say that Army was the perfect matchup for us because we have not done well. I didn't throw any interceptions, but we didn't have success offensively, and I think I've seen enough from this team in Season 3. We're just gonna advance all the way to the conference championship. UTEP's the one game that we could win, but they beat us by 41, and like expected, after that, we didn't pick up another win, so we finished at 11-1, but that's a lot better than 0-12. I'm still gonna get fired, which stinks, but I've gotten so used to not being able to scout players that I forgot I could have done that midway through this season, so it shouldn't make much of a difference, and once again, we did get lucky finding a gem. As for Preston Pennington's first year at the helm, 6 touchdowns to 17 interceptions is an improvement from what we've done, and our rushing totals continue to go up as we get new faces on the team. I'm also very happy to see that our top 5 wide receivers will all be back for another year, but I won't be, as I'm right back to being a level 1 again. I really hope College Football 25's firing's more realistic, because a terrible program shouldn't expect a new head coach to turn around their team in a year, and I'm going to start going with a more professional look. I'm going to be sweating my balls off in a suit coaching for Appalachian State, but we needed to change things up a bit, and we're only losing 3 seniors. Nobody's coming through the transfer portal though, and because I got fired, we've been locked out from signing this 65 overall. We did such a good job at rebuilding our offensive line though, and I'm also happy with Pierre Montgomery, so now I just have to find new places for these fullbacks to play, and they don't really go up overalls at any of these positions. I'm never going to target that position again, and Doug Ratliff actually becomes a better pass rusher, so I'll just keep moving players around until we get a perfect lineup, and this 94 speed walk-on wide receiver is going over to halfback. With how random player progression is though, I never know who's going to start, and even though we're a 1-star school, we're starting to get some bigger jumps with a little bit of regression mixed in there. It's nice to know when Pennington graduates though, Kenny Brown's right behind him, and look at that, Chad Pollard is still going to be our starting running back. Since we have no coordinators, bad facilities, and no pro potential though, you're going to see a lot of players that didn't improve, and it looks like the West Division starting to have more ranked teams than ours. My main hope for this season is we can beat Eastern Michigan, Louisiana Tech, and Army, because we have 19 seniors and 33 juniors, so there's a lot of positions we're going to have to replace. And I don't know how I feel about doing this, but anybody with potential, I kind of want a red shirt. That includes our highest overall, Doug Ratliff, because we have a senior left end that could do just fine, and the search for the best 1-star prospects in the country will continue until I can get us up to a 2-star prestige. Now, I don't know what I'd really do with this, but I found a 1-star punter that runs a 4.38 40, so I really want to land Casey Kendrick because he has 92 speed. Outside of that, it's just continuing to go after the highest overall players that we can find until we can scout them, and this season we're up to a 63 overall. We're still showing almost no progress over the next 4 years though, so there's no reason to continue to check the SEC projections. We're always going to be at the bottom, and our conference rank is still light years ahead of every other conference. I don't know how we're supposed to win like 6 games to ever go up to a 2-star prestige, but I have to hope it happens. And I was seriously targeting this fullback just because he was a high overall, but Northern Illinois is going to take him. That's embarrassing, but other than that, we're just going to get players in for visits as soon as possible, and we're ready for our game against Eastern Michigan. Currently, our offense is averaging 1 point per game, so ideally we can do way better than that in this one, and if you hadn't seen the Eagles field in a while, it is gray. We're just hoping to come away with a good result here at the factory, but nothing's been on target, and by the 3rd quarter, they'd scored 13 points while we still hadn't gotten a single one. Preston Pennington's 4 for 21, but I'm hoping he's able to start heating up here, and we are running for nothing, which is why I'm really hoping that our next quarterback's a scrambler, and there we go. Marquez Moore is a name that you can remember from last year, and defensively, I have been usering Cooper. We should get over to this halfback screen with somebody somebody that they are not going to pick up the third down on. By the time there's 2 minutes left in this game, we're still trailing by 6, but it's not the end of the world because we have the ball and we just need somebody to start making some catches like Johnson. Since Chad Pollard broke his collarbone, he's been filling in at running back, and I can't stress enough how important it is that we pick up a win here. As a team, we have almost no momentum in this dynasty, so we need to get something. And on 1st and goal, I'm going to go over to the flat, which they're all over. I'm hoping that they bite on the play action. It is man-to-man coverage like we wanted, but the ball went through our wide receiver's hands. And on 3rd and goal, I think we're just going to have to go back to a running back. This is not good with the game on the line. We're going to try to thread the needle. And it was probably a second too soon, but you all have a good idea of where I wanted to put that football. This might be another season where we don't get a single win now, and I'm starting to wish that I redshirted a few of the seniors so we'd have them another year later. I just thought with our good starting running back and quarterback we'd be better, but injuries like a broken collarbone hold us back. And who knows how good all these signings really are. What's important is we brought in the punter that had 92 speed, and I thought we could beat Louisiana Tech, but they're 3-1, so I already know that they're going to end up destroying us, and we almost won. We've never scored 39 points before. I am very impressed, and I wish it wasn't already a guarantee that I'm fired again. If I knew I could still get brought back, I'd still care more about this season, but I did find this gym at tackle, and I'm just glad we're scoring a lot more points. Army got a lot better though because they're ranked number 14, and while we've lost every single matchup we've played, they haven't lost a single one. I've done the best I've ever done in recruiting before though, because as I look through these players, fully scouting them, I found 4 gyms at the top of our board. So who cares if we get blown out the rest of the season? I'm so excited to see what type of players we're bringing in, and in the last week of recruiting, we've brought in every prospect I wanted besides Jess Atkins. So since I'm going to be fired anyway, I might as well put a skill point into locksmith, open the battle back up so we could still get this JUCO guard as well, and hope that next season we figure out how to get this team prestige up from a 1-star. I think it all starts at the quarterback position, and Preston Pennington was never amazing, but neither was the wide receiver core that he had to work with, and for a 62 overall running back, these stats from Joe Johnson are impressive. I'm so sick of seeing this message though, and the suit didn't do me any favors, so we're going over to a t-shirt. Now it does stink that all of these higher overalls are graduating. I figured that in their career they would get more than just one win, but then we had this player that entered the transfer portal, and I'm hoping we can at least get 1 or 2 guys back, and this is a wide receiver from Clemson, but he's a 62 overall, so he didn't even belong there. Compared to last year, our team overall might get worse, but I picked up a couple athletes, and it looks like we have another good player that could go on our offensive line. Then Cole Williams makes for a pretty good quarterback, so we have options in this room, and Kenny Brown could be a good scrambler if he improves a bit. As for our 92 speed punter, we have way too many guys on our special teams, so I'm going to move him over to halfback. And just looking at this room, he's only a freshman, so there's a chance if he jumps up a lot of overalls in the future, he starts for us. Do not forget the name Casey Kendrick. And this player progression is driving me nuts. We need to have a better season so our overalls go up by more. All I can really do about it though is hope that we're better than the 3 smaller schools I have on our schedule. And redshirt wise, I'm just going to give it to anybody that hasn't been already. The only exception now is whenever somebody's a clear starter, because at some point we have to start getting wins, and we have 43 juniors. That could be our ticket for moving forward though, because for the first time next year we're supposed to be almost a top 100 team, and our overall is inching up as we're now a 65. The main issue is most of the teams that we face, like Alabama, are still going to destroy us, so we have to luck out on the guys that we're recruiting, and 20% into scouting, Stuart Marcus could be the highest overall we get yet. As we advance through the weeks though, we might find out that he's worse than that, and our true season starts after the Georgia game. I knew we weren't going to win any of those first 3, but now we face off against Eastern Michigan, and all of our top prospects will be visiting for that game. I guess we play Tennessee before them, so we'll just get through that quickly too, and it gives us a chance to take in more players on a visit. We're actually projected to win this, which I wasn't expecting, and unfortunately we are dealing with a few injuries, but so are they. It is Kelly Brown's time to shine, and he's a senior, so this is the 1 year he'll play quarterback for us, which hasn't gone great so far, but I'm literally about to start scrambling with him or taking our check down on this 3rd and 14. I think we have to go for it here, because I really want to get points before the half, but they sent in a blitz and we catch it. With time trickling down, I'm just going to hand it off, but we get stopped, so we need a better play on 3rd and goal, and I might just try to take off with our legs. We cannot lose to the Eagles like we did last year. We have got to figure out how to pick up the win. And on 3rd and 1, the man-to-man coverage is not going to stick on Marshall. The only annoying part about using 1-star JUCOs is they're not on the team for very long, so there's not much point in getting to know most of the roster, but Joe Johnson's been a staple as he's our starter again. Our main kicker was also a senior, so I redshirted him, and that's why we're using this backup, but he still snuck in that 43-yarder, and on a 3rd and 12, they really have nowhere to go. Our coverage is locking down. We just can't let that happen at the last second. I mean, we got lucky the refs bailed us out, because if they didn't, who knows if we would have won this game by 3 points Plus against Eastern Michigan. We held on in the fourth quarter to make sure we came out on top, but it was a lot closer than I would have liked. And look at that, we are already level 3 in scouting. We've also signed pretty much every high overall prospect that I wanted from the start. I know they're JUCOs, but I have to see their true overall now. Kevin Davis is a 75 overall quarterback and Stuart Marcus is a 75 too. Jeremy Tyler ended up being a 78 overall guard, so we had a lot of gems in this class. And I really like these guys that I found because they're not going to come in as JUCOs, but instead true freshmen. Before we play our next easy game though, we have to go on the road to Florida State, so they're going to come out and beat us by 14. And all I'm saying is we're starting to do a lot better. The Blue Raiders 93 overall running back scares me though, because it's raining, which means they're going to run it down our throats, and I don't think our defense is capable of stopping him yet. But before we continue the hardest rebuild ever, a word from Spades Plus, today's video sponsor. I love finding good mobile games to play whenever I travel, and Spades Plus is one that I keep going back to because of all of the options. They even have a section called Lucky Haul where you can find a bunch of fun different mini games. Today I decided that I was going to start playing with a teammate, so in this first match the guy across from me on the table is my partner, and we're trying to score 200 points before the other team. You do that by selecting your bid, which is the amount of hands that you have to win in that round, and let's just say that I didn't hit my prediction in this round, hurting our point total. The next one did go better for us, but we were already behind by a bunch, so my teammate went blind nil to try and help us catch up, but that means he can't win a single hand this round, and unfortunately, even though it was going really good, eventually he had to play the ace of spades. That means we lost, and even though I'm not great at this game, it gets my mind thinking, so I enjoy it, and I've hopped into a solo game where it will be entirely my fault if I lose this one. Let's just say I might have gotten outplayed, but I had a good time, and if you download Spades Plus now using the first link in my description or by scanning this QR code, you'll receive 10,000 coins upon arrival, and now it's time to get back to fixing Appalachian State. Anytime we get this far down the field, we cannot come away with 0 points, but we had an inaccurate pass on the last third down, so I decided to run it and we got it. Our main issue is consistency though, and we have to hold on here, which Flores does, so maybe we'll score the first points of the day versus Middle Tennessee State, and I think this is where Kenny Brown just uses his legs for the best. I'm gonna miss having somebody like him at QB, but in the 1 year that he's the starter, we're gonna continue to use him as much as we can, and I've been very surprised at how little the Blue Raiders have run the ball, but it works out for us. At the end of the day, even though they came close to making a last-second comeback, unless this play goes in their favor, they're not going to, and we've gotten our second win for the first time in a season. Kenny Brown has really helped us, but he probably won't make a difference versus #1 Michigan. If we can just pull off one upset in Sim though, that might be enough to get a 2-star prestige, and Hawaii is the last matchup that we can't lose. Their offense is somehow ranked worse than ours, but they do have the home field advantage, and I just hope that our players aren't too focused on enjoying their time in Hawaii. That's exactly what happened though, as our team just acted like they forgot how to play football, and I'm sad to say we didn't score a single point. That made me so frustrated. I just want to advance into next season after a loss like that, but we beat Washington, and I just realized we might have gotten the one lucky result we needed. Since we lost to Hawaii though, there's no way we go up to a 2-star prestige, and we won our first game in the SEC. All that's left is a matchup against Penn State on the road, and they're going to take us down. But the real unfortunate part is we didn't sign everybody that we wanted because the tight end that was a freshman is no longer on our board. It looks like Tony Woods decided he'd rather go to the Raging Cajuns, but I'm not going to let myself get down because I didn't get fired for the first time. We still have a long way to go before we're ever going to be near the top of the SEC, but somehow we finished above Washington, and Kenny Brown put up the best stats we've ever had out of a quarterback. He was our leading rusher on the ground as well, with Joe Johnson regressing, and it's a shame that he has to be gone next year along with a couple of these receivers. It's kind of crazy that we're already 5 of the 12 years deep and we're nowhere near winning a championship, but we're still in an okay spot because most of our best players are going to be seniors this year. We didn't get anybody in the transfer portal, but we can pretty much guarantee that we're going to sign this guard, and I'm very happy with how this class turned out, especially because of Kevin Davis. Even if we didn't get that freshman tight end too, I found this freshman fullback that's a 62 overall there, so it kind of worked out for us, and I have to make this one a wide receiver. I also was just playing around with which wide receivers become better halfbacks, and that's what Vincent Bell does, so we're definitely going to have him start there, and Casey Kendricks all the way down at the bottom. Right now, as long as we continue to move around players, we're in a really good spot, and sometimes it's so much better to put these outside linebackers on the defensive line. Don't worry, we have a bunch of other guys at the right outside linebacker position to replace them, and this has to be the most important training results in school history. Just looking through it, I'm not too happy with it since some of our top guys regressed, but there were also some big boosts like this +8 on our wide receiver, and Joe Johnson really wanted to play as a senior, going up to a 69 overall. I think the position group that got hit the hardest was our free safety room, and I've been signing so many players, I'm gonna have to start cutting seniors that aren't gonna play for us. Between red shirts and that, we only have 26 seniors on this roster instead of the 43 it was supposed to be, and it's so nice that I can actually scout players from the start of recruiting this year. I also can't redshirt players like Kevin Davis, even though it would probably help us in the future, but I will do it for a couple of these wide receivers and other players just to keep them around. As for our non-conference games I'm scheduling, Hawaii's not going to be on here, and I can't wait to find out these players' true overalls right off the rip. It's honestly amazing to already have a decent idea of what gyms are in this class, and our team overall is up to a 68, so we're still projected to finish at the bottom of our conference, but from a nationwide perspective, these next few years might not be as terrible. I actually really like how our recruiting board looks right now. There's a couple players on here that are not going to be just JUCO juniors, and it's a tradition at this point to just let Alabama hand us our first loss of the season. There's really no point in even taking these first few weeks seriously. We're not going to win a game until we take on Kent State, and this has to be the first time that we've had the higher overall roster. I'm a little annoyed though, because even though we're only allowed to go after 1-stars, Nebraska's about to steal this cornerback from us, and I worked hard to find this +9 gym that's a 1-star, but again, we're struggling to win some of these battles. The only thing we can really do is schedule them all for a visit versus Kent State, and I'm hoping that we can beat them by a lot. We haven't seen our team dominate in anything so far, and even this game's been rough, but we have new faces on the roster that are just JUCO juniors, so the more comfortable they get with the experience they already have, it's going to start getting easier, and that touchdown pass makes it 20-3. It happened quickly, but once we started scoring a lot, we had no issues, so with 2 minutes left in the game, Kent State stands 0 chance, even if their defense manages to hold us on the goal line. A win there caused all these guys to sign, including Eric Pearson, Mark Smiley, Greg Dykes, Gary Vaughn, and about every single player that I wanted besides Cornelius Moore and Joe Doyle. I just noticed though that somehow Purdue ended up on our schedule, and I swear I didn't put them there, but maybe something didn't save correctly. We're probably going to go 2-10 again because of this, since the Boilermakers are ranked in the top 25, but it also gives us a huge chance to shock the world, and that might be what we need to take us up to that next level. Even though overall doesn't mean everything, I'm trying to keep in my mind that they're only a 74 overall. That is definitely beatable, and you can tell that I am missing having a scrambling quarterback, but we're going to be okay. Whoever Bend Hand is was able to get open in the end zone, and as time winds down in this first half, it's still 7-7, so we're doing fine. Daniels also almost broke free out of there, and he does. He stays up on his feet. Our tight end is making the play of a century, and I don't think anybody's going to catch him. There's no way. Steven Daniels just pulled off one of the most incredible things I've ever seen, and that has shut down this Boilermakers crowd. They are silent right now, but we have to make the tackle before the marker. Now their mascot's dancing on us, but we forced them into a 4th and 4, so they're going to try to pick it up against us, and it looks like we left somebody open. It is going to be 14 all. I'm trying my best to drive down the field versus their man-to-man coverage though, and we might actually get some more points before the half because we just keep finding someone open. I think we're going to have that route on the right side of the field, but there's no time, and that might be the defensive play that the Boilermakers needed in that situation, but we get it. This is another chance to really change the outcome, and our new running back Vincent Bell was able to find the end zone. Looks like they're sending in a blitz on this 3rd and 3, and our blocks didn't hold up well, but we'd eventually get another touchdown out of it, and if they don't pick up this 4th and 8, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. This is really set up to be our first win against a top 25 program in our rebuild, and I'm playing it so smart. I am punting it back to them with 2.5 minutes left. They're still down by 13, and the bounce did not go the way that I was hoping it would. If we choke this now, I'm never going to forgive myself, and they do get a touchdown. But 1 first down is all that it takes for the win, and we're coming close. They're sending in a blitz though, so I really wanted to throw the ball, and Davis is just fast enough to get it, meaning we have beaten a team ranked in the top 25. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to take to get this team prestige up to a 2-star, but maybe 4 wins does it, and how am I even on the hot seat? I swear, if I get fired after beating a top 25 team, I'm gonna lose my mind, because there's no reason for that, but we might need to upset another school. I can't believe it, but at least UTEP's on our schedule, and since we're at home, +5 overall is better, I feel comfortable simming this game. We're actually able to lean on Davis. This is incredible, and the recruits are always going to continue to flood in. Even corners like Joe Doyle signed with us after Miami, Ohio dropped out of the race, and I haven't quite won over Cornelius Moore yet, but we're getting closer. With these 3 games left on our schedule, I think I have to hop into the one against Washington, because even though they're doing better in SEC play than last season, their roster's only a 79 overall, and if we're going to get a 4th win, it's got to be against them. It's never going to be easy on the road, but I feel like we could still shock the world again, and we just have to be smart about how we play this because their defense locks us up. On 3rd and 14, I'm hoping that we can pick up the blitz, and we did, so we're going to be able to convert, but the longer the drive goes on, the more we get in these 3rd down situations over and over, and Roderick Murray is gone to the end zone. That was all we needed to keep it competitive, even if we haven't scored ever since that moment, and I'm honestly so happy with how this team has performed. Our defense could be better, I won't deny that at all, but either way we're staying in it, and I will take the flat routes if I need to because they're easy to pick up. I'm really not sure if 4-6 is going to be enough to make us a 2-star school if we win, but I'm hoping it does because that would change everything. At some point I have to be allowed to go after higher overall prospects, and here on 2nd and 11 I don't think any of their routes got open. That's exactly what you want to see out of a defense, assuming that they aren't able to get into the end zone here, but they did. So we've had to drive it all the way down the field, and we're already in field goal range, but I don't want to get a field goal and send this thing to overtime. I want this game to be over on this possession, and I'm going to roll out, hopefully take this slant on the run, which is in, but I left them 34 seconds, so I have to make sure that we don't miss the extra point. On the final play of the game, they are going to throw up the Hail Mary. I don't think it's going to reach the end zone though, so we should be okay, and we are. But even though this is exactly what we wanted, I don't think 4 wins is enough. I've thought about it, and I've done a ton of rebuilds where team prestige never changed after getting that many wins, so we have to luck out against Penn State. And just for a recruiting update, the only players that haven't signed to the team yet are Josh Young, who I went after late, and then Cornelius Moore, who we're still battling for. At an 84 overall, the Nittany Lions are probably one of the lower overall teams in the conference, but it doesn't matter because they just took us down, but this guy didn't commit to Georgia Southern. Apparently that's App State's rival, so we're going to start playing them outside of conference play. We're down here at the bottom above Ole Miss though, and the SEC is so good that even though Michigan has 4 losses, they're sitting at number 5 in the polls. That's crazy, and when it comes to season stats, nobody led the team in rushing yards, but for the first time ever, our quarterback threw more touchdowns than interceptions, and our 2 best receivers were so much fun to use, but now they're both gone. Whenever it comes to getting fired though, I think I'm good because I just got a 6-year extension, but if we lose a non-conference game, I'll be back on the hot seat, and losing defenders like Doug Ratliff are going to hit this team pretty hard. His stats were never crazy, but 5 sacks is a good amount, and the only reason this freshman center is transferring out is because he was going to get no playing time. The guys that want to transfer in though are no longer that useful, as I think I might decline both of them, but I kept the 58, and with 1 scholarship left, it is going to Cornelius. It's never going to make a difference in how bad our recruiting class is ranked, but as I continue to level up as a head coach, we're going to start putting together a lot better classes, and we have so few guys at defensive end, I just have to move all of our linebackers over there. Pretty much everybody's getting passed around because I want to hit the highest overall possible, and I don't care if this kid's only 6 foot, 182 pounds, he is going on the defensive line. We also have so many 69 overall cornerbacks, it's ridiculous, and this might be our most important player progression yet. Well, there's still some guys that didn't improve, but the longer I'm a head coach, the better these seem to be getting, and I'm so confident in this team, I've put Hawaii on our schedule again. What I'm really curious about though is whether or not our team prestige went up, because I'd love to stop having to search for 1-star gyms, and we'll find that out next week. I think we hit the jackpot with athletes this year though, between Jared Cooper and Willie Grant, who is 97 Excel. But the real question is what our team prestige is, and it is still a 1-star, but we're up to a 70 overall with decent projections. You know, we might not be on the level we need to beat Bama, but we've still made a lot of progress, and at the top of our recruiting board, there's multiple players we have got to land. Let's just go ahead and get these first 3 losses in this season out of the way, and then from there, we're going to do our best to get 5 wins. It's not going to come against the big teams, but there's a couple SEC schools that are lower overalls like Washington and Ole Miss, so we're going to hope for the best in those matchups. As for recruiting, most players are ready to come on a visit, so that's going to be against Georgia Southern, but I did notice this 63 overall guard is going to choose Louisiana Tech over us. I don't understand, but it turns out we're still seen as a pretty bad school. Recruits would rather do anything else than come here, so that's why it's crucial that we come out on top of this matchup, and every so often I'm going to make the right read as that's a touchdown. This is exactly what I was hoping to get out of Kevin Davis at QB, but by the 4th quarter, we still haven't scored again, and that interception is going to set Georgia Southern up in a bad spot. I can't believe how we just get hot and cold on offense. It's never consistent, but we've held them to a 4th and 3, so we could get them off the field here, assuming our man-to-man coverage holds, and there we go. From that point, we've driven down the field, and now I'm going to start chewing the clock. Vincent Bell was almost gone, but it's not the end of the world that he wasn't, because they're going to have to start burning timeouts. I'm hoping we can beat the press over on the right side of the field, but that was not the case, and instead Robert Hall was open, putting us up by 2 possessions. They are going to attempt a field goal with a minute left, but it is not far enough, so we've done all that it takes to beat our rivals, and I'm hoping this can be something we do consistently. Whenever you take down a rival like that, you always get a ton of commits, and I think we should be able to win in Sim versus Hawaii. They're 1-2, we're coming off a win, and it is going to be a 7-point win for us, so we've already gotten to the point where we can sim against these smaller schools, and that means hopping in to face some of these SEC opponents, but none of those schools, because they're going to go out and destroy us. The problem with playing them every single year though is I don't know how we're ever supposed to become a 2-star school, because it's practically impossible to make it to a bowl game. By this point in the season, we're sitting down here at 2-6, and we're not going to win all 4 of these matchups, especially against number 4 Ohio State. Now we might have a chance versus 0-7 Ole Miss, but even then it's going to be a tough battle, and I'm just hoping that we can impress our fans. They would score first, but we're getting very close to responding, and you can't drop the ball in that situation. There's too much on the line right now, so we're gonna have to take the curl route to Jones, and he runs out of the end zone, but we'll still be able to punch it in from here. The problem is our defense just can't seem to get a stop for us, and they almost picked it. So now we're on a 3rd and 6, and I'm just gonna have to try and force it into a very tight window. Beating an SEC school would be such a big deal for us, and I think this could set the tone for the rest of the rebuild. We've scored 21 points in the first half against the Rebels, but the second half didn't go our way, so with a minute left in this game, we're trailing by 6. We only have 1 timeout remaining too, which could really hurt us, but I'm gonna try to do what I know works, and that'll take us to the 30. Robert Hall has almost 200 receiving yards in this game. We're also fighting all the way to the 5, so I'm gonna run that same concept back, and there we go. We had the touchdown open, but it was a bad throw, and on 2nd and goal, we're just gonna try and hit our slant. With 1 timeout remaining, they probably won't expect the run here, and I can't believe that we just got that to work. That win over Ole Miss really sets the tone now, but we still need a lot of things to go our way, and one of those is beating Marshall on the road. They're 68 overall, but they're also 5-3, so I knew it was probably going to be tough, and I'm surprised at Davis's performance because he rushed for almost 100 yards. Now, we did sign the main players that we wanted in recruiting, but after that, we have lost a few battles, and that includes this one for Brian Dickerson, the 67. But it's not the end of the world. He wasn't great, and I would expect us to be sitting at 4-7 whenever we play Penn State. If we're somehow able to beat them, we won't be the worst team in our division, but it's on the road and they're an 86 overall. We know from last year that 4 wins doesn't raise our team prestige, so we really need to pull off a miracle and somehow get a win in one of the toughest places to play. As we approach the 4th quarter, it's safe to say that we're not built for that yet, but that's because their defense has shut us down, and I just want to get it within 2 possessions. Now we have to get them off the field, and we could do that here, but I did not stick with Reese very well. And on 3rd and 8, I don't think they're going with a halfback screen or anything, but we still locked up pretty well, and we're also going to force the fumble. We'll take it. That's going to make them punt it back to us, and we might be stuck on a 3rd and 23 with the crowd shaking, but we can still pick that up to Taylor. Maybe there is a little bit of hope for a comeback if we can thread the needle like right here, and I would expect them to run the ball on 1st and 10, but they wanted to throw it instead. I might end up regretting not calling a timeout, but I figured there was a chance they would throw the ball, and it actually worked out because we could still get them off the field. There's certainly not going to be as much time as I would have hoped for if we stopped them, but they broke a tackle, and this game is completely over. I don't know what it's going to take for us to get to 5 or 6 wins, but it felt like we were pretty close, and I just need the ability to go after some 2-stars. Kevin Davis was probably the best player we've had at QB, but he still took a step back, and receiving wise, I'm just thankful that 3 of these 4 top guys are returning. As for our rushing attack, it would have been better to redshirt Vincent Bell, and why does it say my job is only safe for now? Getting 4 wins with this team is literally a miracle, and they're not thankful for it, plus we just lost a ton of starters that were really good. The transfers aren't getting any better either. This guy doesn't help us much, but we did make some really good signings in recruiting like Jared Cooper. He becomes a 75 overall offensive lineman, so you can't complain about that. And then Willie Grant's the real star because when I make him a wide receiver, he goes up to a 78. If player progression goes right, this has to be the best receiving room we've ever had, and the turnaround on this roster's been so crazy that we're about to be out of DBs if I don't recruit a ton more. I really don't know how we're going to take that next step, but it might just be through being consistent because this is probably the best that our team has ever looked. The only issue I'm running into is figuring out who to cut, and I think it has to be the slower QB of the two, but we could be set up for a big year because we got a new offensive coordinator and he's a level 12. It's still going to be almost impossible to win 6 games with this schedule, but all I can do is just keep redshirting players and figure out a way to keep those 41 juniors around for longer. Recruiting only 1-stars really isn't that bad whenever we find prospects like John Gilliam, a 78 overall tight end, but them all being JUCOs is the issue, as by 2023 we're supposed to be the worst team again, and that's why I'm going to hop into some SEC games this season against teams like Florida State. We're going to have to really trust quarterback Eric Pearson and running back Nelson Hughes to lead the way, and wins might not come against Alabama. We're never going to take them down, but LSU could be a completely different story. I am a little annoyed I found a 72 overall fullback and he has almost no interest in our school, but I'm hoping beating LSU could change his mind, and even though it's in Death Valley, we have got to come out on top. Here in the 3rd quarter, things pre-play are still very confusing, but that's because we're using a young quarterback, and this takes us to the 35, so Tyrone Taylor brings it in, and eventually we're going to take our first lead. Our defense is our higher overall unit, but I wasn't expecting them to play as well as they have, and we could really use a big play out of our offense here, which Tyrone Taylor is working to get with the stiff arm. We've really come alive on our last 2 drives, and this is exactly what I was hoping for. It couldn't have gone any better, as they have no choice but to just punt it back to us with only a few minutes left in this game. We are in such a good position against LSU, and I love it. It's felt like things have been pretty even, but at the end of the day, we got exactly what we were looking for, and we're just 5 wins away now from making a bowl. I really might have to ride our momentum into this Georgia game, because if anything's going to cause Eric Johnson to flip, it would be a visit week and a win here. And I just got lucky with this defensive end, Jim, as there's another player that I now want to go after. The Bulldogs still haven't won a game this season, so I'm hoping that we can keep things that way, but this one's going to be even harder than the LSU game. Approaching halftime, we are down by 10, but I'm going to find Nelson Hughes up the middle, and he just juked out both of those defenders. I think with his speed, he is going to be gone to the crib. That is exactly what I was hoping for before halftime. They better not get this 3rd and 17, and you know we're calling a timeout. If the Bulldogs just collapsed here before the half, we could be all right, and on a 3rd and 6, I'm just going to take the smart route underneath because we have some receivers with speed. I think we've handled the end of the second quarter almost perfectly, and the fact that we just went up by 4 is insane. The issue is our inconsistency though, as we're losing with a few minutes left, and I don't know what to do on 4th and 1. I almost decided to kick 3, but this is the better move, and they've worked it all the way down into field goal range against us, but we could hold them to 3 ourselves. On 3rd and 6, I am expecting the pass, and that's what they went with. We are all over everything. We need to get the sack though, and we did not. Please tell me we have the interception here, and Jenkins come away with the football. This could be the play that we needed. Oh my gosh, we're actually going to beat Georgia. I did not think we could pull this off, but we're going to fall down, and that is an incredible moment. We'd kick the game-winning field goal to get the win, and I still can't believe that we came out on top. Now I feel so confident simming this rivalry, and somehow we find ourselves with a lead on Eric Johnson, but more importantly, we have signed some big names, including athlete John Harper, who is going to probably play at corner for us, and then of course tight end John Gilliam. This is the best that I've felt about any team that we've had so far in this rebuild, and I built this schedule thinking about how we could start the year, where we could really use another win against New Mexico, and there we go. Now it's up to me to beat the Seminoles, because if we do that, I'd assume we could also take down Utah, but maybe I should be looking forward to the Ole Miss game. I can only hop into one more, so I have to be kind of smart about how I do this, and we lose by 3. It shouldn't be the end of the world though, because UTEP's bad, so assuming that we come out on top, we're going to be sitting at 5 wins, and Eric Pearson is continuing to do so well. I mean, I've never had an easier time in recruiting. So many different players have signed already. There's only 8 more prospects on our board we haven't landed, and the one player that we're probably not going to get still is Eric Johnson, because even though we had a good visit, we're losing 200 points a week. We need to level up as soon as possible so we can get kitchen sink level 3, and we do have to face off against the Wolverines first, but after that we get to go on the road at Ole Miss, where I'm hoping we can get our 6th win. By that time we'd have a coach upgrade, but Eric Johnson already chose Southern Miss, and this is such an important matchup, but Ole Miss is better than they were last season. After losing 5 straight to start the year, they started to pick up some wins, and this could change the future outlook of the rebuild. To move forward, we have to get to 2-star prestige, because I need to be able to recruit some 2-star players, and that's why I'm pumped. With 2 minutes left in the 3rd quarter, it's tied up at 17, but their defense has been doing a good job. It's on ours to get the ball back, and on 3rd and 10, they are going to have an open receiver over the middle, so I'm afraid that they're about to score a touchdown, and now that they're inside the 10, we're in trouble. To start this 4th quarter, we have got to keep them out of the end zone, and I feel like that guy is open on that part of the field, but it's being marked as a 4th and 1, so they took their 3, and if this is the final drive of the game, that changes everything for us. A missed pass makes this a 4th and 5 though, and please tell me we're not going to drop the ball. That would have been devastating, because we cannot afford to make a mistake now, and that is going to get us to like the 30. We are so close to becoming bowl eligible. All we have to do is take care of business here. That is Casey Kendrick, and that's the punter that I moved over to running back. I didn't think I'd ever see him on the field, but we're trying to use his speed, and the only reason he's in is because Nelson Hughes strained his Achilles. Recruiting a punter with a 4.40 was ridiculous in the first place, but he is making a difference, and this is going to be a touchdown. Casey Kendrick is the player that is doing it all for us, and I think we're going to get our 6th win, assuming that they don't get anything on the final play, and they don't. Eric Pearson really is the guy that saved us, because with him in the lineup, no matter what happens the rest of the year, we are going to make our first bowl, and I don't even care if we beat anybody else. These are hard opponents we have remaining on our schedule, and nobody thinks that we're going to win any of them. I don't know what we did differently, but we had players that were award finalists like DJ Edwards, and just looking at the rest of our conference, everybody is continuing to beat up on each other while we're sitting here above Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and LSU. Our defense must have carried if he actually won that award, and I gotta check out his stats. The senior linebacker didn't lead the team in tackles or anything special, but he must have had a lot of interceptions or something, and when it came to our rushing totals, of course Eric Pearson and Nelson Hughes were at the top. I'm actually really surprised that the junior only turned it over 4 4 times. And Tyrone Taylor was a 1,000-yard receiver coming in with stats like this. Now, we didn't make a bowl, which was a little upsetting, but I guess they thought teams that beat us were more deserving, like Florida State. Our team prestige should go up to 2 stars either way though, but until I can confirm that, I'm gonna be very nervous because we just lost a lot of high overall players. Some of them made a lot bigger of a difference than others, but all of them were better than the 2 options we had in the transfer portal this season, and we still haven't had a single player get drafted. I think next year we'll be able to go after some 2-star prospects though, and I'm assuming that John becomes an even better wide receiver when we move him over there, so that's where he's gonna play. I'm also pretty excited about John Harper because he's gonna start at free safety for us, and I'm curious to see what our player progression looks like. Just off of these numbers alone, I think it's safe to assume that we're probably a 2-star school because most players improve besides every single guy in our quarterback room, and I think we have to look at championship contender to see what star we are, but it is a 2-star. That changes everything because we're no longer going to have 38 juniors, and I'm about to find the best 1 and 2-star players in the country. It looks like their overall for freshmen might start around a 60 to 63, but I'm expecting these JUCO players to be a lot better, and please tell me just one of these quarterbacks is going to be a solid starter. So far through scouting, I feel like I'm doing pretty well because even though most of these guys are still going to be JUCOs, this guy is not. He's an 81, and the fullback might just turn into a running back. We're in a position now where I'll just keep on redshirting everybody I can, and that way it's still not the end of the world when we lose all the seniors that are on our roster. But again, what's really important is that we hang on to this 2-star prestige so we can stay going after 2 stars because our future outlook wasn't looking great, and there's still a lot better teams than us in our division. I wish there was a way for us not to start the season every single year against Alabama because we always lose, so I'm hoping we can make up for it by getting Adam Collier to sign with us. One way to do that would be beating LSU again, and this time we don't have to play them in Death Valley. Now that we've finally started to win, we have fans coming out to our games, and nobody scored in the second quarter, but I'm hoping we can make that happen here and they get the sack. Now it's 2nd and goal, but their coverage could not stick, and that's because we actually have some good receivers. The main issue with some of them though is they don't always get open. So with a few minutes left in this game, it remains tied up and we needed that 3rd and 19. Unfortunately, we were tackled a yard short, but we're gonna go for it even if they send a blitz in our direction because I'd rather have the ball in the hands of our offense instead of our defense, and we keep picking up the 1st down even if it's a close call sometimes. That loss of yards was not pretty, but I'm hoping that this can put us at least in field goal range, and at the end of the day, we would work to just settle for 3 to end it. That's how we closed out our game against Georgia last year, and I'm really glad that we came away with that result. Words cannot express how thankful I am for Eric Pearson, but with the way that our schedule is set up to start the year, I think we're still going to be 1 and 3. Georgia was an 88 overall. I'm sure USC's like a 90 something. We're not going to win, and that's why we have to bounce back against Georgia Southern. They haven't won a game yet this season. I don't think they've beaten us on this file, and it was an easy win, but before simming it, I was a little bit nervous. As for recruiting, I like how things are looking on pretty much every single prospect besides Adam Collier, and that's why we need to figure out a visit week, but I don't think we're going to beat Michigan, so it has to be Bowling Green. For pretty much every other player though, it's going to be UTEP, and before that one, we're at Florida State. Both of us have lost a starter for the season, and anytime I decide to step into a game, I can't lose it or else our chance at making a bowl goes out the window. That's why it's so concerning with 4 minutes left against the Seminoles. We find ourselves trailing by 10 points, but this could be a huge play that goes down to the 4, and our running back room has done a really good job for us so far. I am going to get our new wide receiver involved on this play though, and I'm so glad that we landed John Gilliam last season. When it comes to stopping the Seminoles though, we have to do it on this 3rd and 5, and that means we're getting the ball back. A lot has happened in this game, but what's super important is with a few minutes left, we're only trailing by 3, and then we got hit with intentional grounding. 2nd and 28 is something that you never want to see whenever you have to pick up a first, and time is sure not on our side. It looks like this is man-to-man coverage though, and we're just going to go for the catch. I don't know how it happened, but we've been bailed out with a penalty, and I'm accepting this all day. You wouldn't expect stuff like that to happen on the road at Florida State, but the refs have helped us out here, and we got to get out of bounds, stopping the clock, allowing us to continue our drive, and we are already in field goal range, but we're going for the game-winning touchdown. That man-to-man coverage is not going to work in this situation, and we always find a way to get the win. We're going to need another one against the Miners though, and I swear if we don't come out on top of this, I would be so upset. Now we've signed pretty much every player besides the one that I actually wanted, Adam Collier, and I'm so annoyed by that, but I guess it's time to start searching for more 2 stars to pursue. I always end up finding a couple guys that could be super useful, and that includes this 66 overall corner that's a freshman, but I'm still devastated that we didn't get that 81 overall fullback, and I think we might lose to Bowling Green during sim. They're 5-1, so they are favored, but I have to hop into this one against Washington to make sure we go 6-6, so let's just hope for the best. It worked out exactly how I wanted it to, and one day we'll be in the running for a conference championship. For now though, what's important is maintaining maintaining our prestige, because after targeting 2 stars this season, I can't go back to recruiting only 1 stars. Like every other game though, we have to work super hard just to come out on top, and we're losing with a minute and a half left. We have no speed on the outside either, so I can't try to bomb them over top to beat their defense. And on 3rd and 10, I think I'm just gonna have to hit John Gilliam in stride, but he's gonna take it for like 20. Now we're starting to make some progress, and that is a very tight window, but it's gonna put us in field goal range. And once we start running it to set up for the game winner, we're always fine. That's the 2nd season in a row with 6 wins, and maybe this time we'll actually make it to a bowl, even if we're getting destroyed in a lot of games. I also don't like to see that we've lost another battle, but that's just what happens when you go after better players like 2 stars, and Ray Duckett could be a future quarterback that we redshirt with stats like these. The 66 throw accuracy is not great, but it could be improved upon during the offseason. And after going 6-6 again, all the way down here at the bottom of our conference, I just hope that's enough to make a bowl. Only a certain amount from each conference get in though, and because we're ranked 12th, you're not going to see us on that list. Eric Pearson never got the chance to play in a bowl game, but he did regress, so if he didn't have as many turnovers, maybe we would have gotten 1 more win. And just looking at these stats, there's nothing to get excited about. I am a little frustrated the athletic director said he's disappointed that we didn't make a bowl appearance though, because it's not my fault. It's taken us 9 seasons, but we're finally winning 6 games a year. In order to not give away a copy of College Football 25 though, we have to win a championship within the next 3 seasons, and I think it's pretty obvious that's not happening if the best players graduating from our team are only 80 overalls. The transfer portal isn't getting any better for us either, but I took them in anyway because they're freshmen, and I hope we make these 3 signings. Look at that, 3 yellow names, that's what we wanted. And for the first time in school history, we are not having the worst recruiting class in the country, but what's more important is we're a 3-star prestige. I forgot you could see that on that page, but that's huge going into next season. We can recruit 3 stars, and they're going to be so much better than what we got this year. I'm not even worried about moving these guys around. We also just got a huge boost to our defensive line by signing Sean Johnson, and I can't believe I brought in 3 different freshman free safeties. We have finally hit a point where we're really starting to take leaps forward, and pretty much everybody in our program's improving during the offseason besides a few players that regress. It's taken us forever to get here, but now it's more important than ever that we keep winning 6 games. And while trying to figure out who I'm going to redshirt, I've realized we have to rebuild our quarterback room and our halfback room. It should be easier than ever though, because I'm about to search the country for the best talent, and I don't care if I spend an hour putting together this recruiting class. I'm going to get us the best 3 stars in the country. It's so nice to have some 70 overalls on our board that are freshmen, but whether or not we get these players is all dependent on if these schools go after them. And if anybody's our future quarterback, it's athlete Brian Palmer. As a team, for the 3rd year in a row, we're still a 74 overall, but you can see that our 4-year projection's starting to get a little bit better. And the fact that we're no longer projected to finish at the bottom of the SEC every season is a miracle. Now, if I'm being honest, I'm expecting us to lose these first 3 games, but then I want to hop into that one against Oklahoma. They're an 81 overall, and it's so annoying that these colleges never stay bad. For the past couple years, LSU was a matchup I thought we could win, but now it's going to be one that we lose. And just getting a brief overview of the players we're going after, it looks like some of these are going to be some hard battles. We kind of lucked out though, because it forced me to start looking at some other players, and now I think we're going to get both of these linebackers. One thing I promised though was I was going to lock in on recruiting, and I've never found a plus 15 gem before, so he had to go to the top of our board, but there's a lot of players I'm keeping an eye on, and I think we're going after 14 guys total. Our next game is against Georgia, and they keep starting 0-2, but that's because they play Ohio State and Penn State first. This is another one that I know we're not going to come out on top of, so we're playing Oklahoma, and I wish there were more players ready to come on a visit. If we're able to pull off this upset, some of these guys should instantly commit, but if we don't, we're in a lot of trouble. Starting the season 0-4 means our prestige is almost guaranteed to drop, and I might be playing it risky right now, but I have to take it. You can see that their defense is insane already. So that's how we find ourselves trailing 17-0, and I'm pretty sure our backup quarterback is in. Ray Duckett, the guy I just recruited, broke his collarbone, so he's out for the season. And we're also stuck using a backup running back, so no wonder this team's been struggling, and that's a drop too. All I can really say is this is not good for us, and I'm gonna go for it on 4th and goal, but it pays off. The problem is they still managed to score before the half, so we're right back to trailing by 17 points, and I swear I cannot deal with any more drops. Oklahoma was ranked. I should have known it would go like this, but I was just a little bit delusional that we could actually pull it off, and on 3rd down they get the first. If they get into the end zone, this game is over. But you're probably thinking I'm showing this for a reason, and that reason is you seeing me frustrated as they get in. There's no way we win 6 games, and it was such a bad decision to hop into this one. I mean, I'm still gonna try my best to pull off the comeback, but I think we all know it's not gonna happen at this point. And why do we have to deal with so many injuries? I mean, our backup can't even get into the end zone, and finally David Wright just fought his way in. On 3rd and 3, they're already running clock, block, and we are going to not get the pick, but we are getting the ball. And look at that, we scored quickly. I didn't even get a chance to do it myself, but I'll take it. And on 3rd and 7, they actually decided to throw the ball, which they're going to bring in. This one's completely over unless the computer is just really dumb. And it would be so funny if they passed on 3rd and 15, but they handed it off. I'm gonna sweat it out though. We'll put our fastest player at punt returner because like I said, this result is so huge and we're getting it back with about 15 seconds left. It's not the end of the world. Noel is gonna do the back juke and he is just not quick enough to go far enough. We could get into field goal range though. I just don't know where our kicker can hit from. And if this ball was better placed, they wouldn't have been able to shove us out of bounds before we got a foot in. They've come out pressing some of our wide receivers, but I think we know that we're just not going to beat them deep. And on the final play of the game, I doubt we're going to have enough time in the pocket to do anything here. It is all over. I can't win them all. We have dropped a game to the Sooners, and we're about to be a 2-star school again. That means we have to make the most of the guys that we signed this year, and right now, I think these 16 players are all going to come to our program. It's just going to take a while to get them in, and in the meantime, we can't lose another. I've simmed too many times on this game, though, to know that the sim results aren't always right, and I don't think I can play this one against Florida State. There's a chance we win that one during sim, and we can hop into 2 more games, maybe against Washington in one of these ranked schools, because that's the only way we might hit 6 wins, but then again, we could make this a visit week. You know what? I'm all for us trying to get momentum right now, and maybe that can carry over to the rest of the year when we have to sim. I've never had to play so strategically in a rebuild like this before, but it's such a hard challenge, and it's pretty clear that we're not going to get a championship in 12 seasons, but I still think it's going to be possible to eventually win a championship with this team. I wanted my final rebuild on this game to be something that really pushed its limits, and trust me, this did, because no matter how hard I try, I just can't seem to beat the computer. But Grant had a big play, and all of a sudden with a couple minutes left, even though we do find ourselves trailing, we have a chance to get it within 3. This is almost an identical situation to what we just went through versus Oklahoma, and I swear if they come out passing the ball now, I'm going to be very annoyed. We are not in defense to stop that, but we are in defense that should stop the run if their running back wasn't so good, and that 3rd and inches just hurt us so much. I'm sending the house hoping for the best, and we are going to miss out on their quarterback. That is not what we needed, because now there's only a minute left and we have just 2 timeouts left. They keep getting more. It's over. This team's about to take a step back, and I'm trying my best. The only good thing is we've brought in a few signings like Brian Palmer, who I said I wanted to play at quarterback with these stats, but outside of that, we're in shambles. And even if we take down the Blue Raiders, next up on our schedule is a road game at Michigan. There's no breaks in this conference, and we have to keep signing good guys, and things have gotten tough because we haven't been able to sign either of these corners. One day in this rebuild, this will be a competitive matchup, but at least for now, it's looking like it should be another blowout, and if we lose one more game, we can't make a bowl. I chose the wrong ones to hop into. We just had so many tough matchups, and I think we have to simulate against the Huskies. We could still hop into one more matchup, but we play both Ohio State and Penn State, so we're not going to beat both of them, and I've just accepted that next season it's back to going after 2-star recruits. Between all the signings that we've been trying to make though, and then the guys that have actually committed, like that JUCO that's an 80 overall, and then a lot of these guys as we scroll through this board that are just amazing, I think we're prepared to have players that we're going to be developing for a while. After losing to Penn State though, we're finishing the year 3-9, and that's at the bottom of our conference, so I can't even blame this tight end for choosing Florida State. What I didn't expect was my job security to start going down again though, because even if it was a rough year, over this 10-year time frame, I've done a lot to try to bring this program to relevancy, and I can't get fired at this point in the rebuild. Kyle Baldwin filled in pretty nicely for being a backup, but he was certainly no Eric Pearson, and that caused all these receivers to also not have as good stats. When it came to the rushing game though, David Wright probably did the best that we've had out of a running back, and it looks like on top of losing like 20 seniors, with most of them being starters, we're also going to have a freshman that's going to enter the transfer portal, and I was a little disappointed that John Gilliam wasn't better, but he was also a 1-star recruit. Even though it wasn't supposed to happen, we did have a player get drafted into the NFL, so that'll actually help us out a lot during player progression, and I hope we enjoyed getting the 32nd best class in the country because we're back to going after 2 stars. I knew our prestige was going to drop. There was nothing that could have changed that, but I know I did a good job finding those prospects because of the top 10 players on our team right now, only 2 of them are returning from last season. I do wish I went after more athletes though, because Jordan Boyd's going over to wide receiver, while Merrill's going to give us some depth at corner that we desperately needed, and then I had to decide between Brandon Hall and Brian Palmer who I wanted to put at quarterback, but I'm always going to choose the freshman. We still needed some runners though, so Jason Thompson's going over there alongside Brian Palmer, and it's a tradition to take some of these new linebackers and rebuild our defensive line. Now we just hope that my coach experience carries over to player progression, and this is exactly why I cannot get fired now that I've gotten gotten up to this high of a level. We might still be stuck in the hardest conference of all time, but I'm continuing to level up, and so are some of our coordinators. And when you combine that with the new recruits plus how much our players just progressed, I think we can get 6 wins with this schedule. The red shirts need to be tactical though, and there's no reason to have 2 senior quarterbacks graduate, and what I'm trying to do is make sure that each season we only lose a couple players at each position. I don't think I'll regret that either, because we finally don't have a junior class with like 40 players in it, and even if I can only go after 2 stars, I feel like I'll still find some decent talent. Well, they might all be JUCO juniors, but these guys would fill in our roster very nicely. I'm happy with what I found, and they'd be on the team for 3 years assuming we redshirt them, so we're going to go after all of them. As for our actual overall, we're sitting at a 77, and even though that's the best that we've ever had, it's still tied for the worst in the SEC with Ole Miss. This is already the end of day 2 for me with this rebuild, but at least we're showing signs of progress. By 2026, we're supposed to be 27, and I feel like that recruiting class I put together last year is going to carry us very far. Like expected, we're supposed to win the battles for pretty much all of these guys, but Derek Cole's the one difficult player. We're losing points on him, so I'll accept defeat there, and we're not touching any of these games until we play against Ole Miss and on the road at Florida State. Our overall is just a little bit too low right now, so we know that we're going to start the year 0-4, which is really unfortunate, and I'm hoping I can play a little bit better tomorrow. Georgia's 0-2 for like the 4th year in a row, losing to Ohio State and Penn State, but we all know whenever they're a 90 overall, they're going to make sure they get their first win against us, and it's so frustrating. I've honestly been hoping that something fluky happened in these matchups, but I think I'm about to go to bed very disappointed, and Oklahoma beat us by 15. The last thing I'll do is make sure that I schedule visits for the game against Ole Miss, and we better hope that we don't lose this one, because if we do, we're on track to going back to being a 1-star school. I cannot deal with that. We're going to come out on top, or at least I'm hoping so. Brandon Hall is our new starting quarterback, and as the freshman, he's going to get us down to the 4, but what really makes him special is we can run the option run with him, and that gives us a lead to end the 3rd quarter. Ole Miss would respond back with a touchdown though, so that puts the pressure on us, and this is where we have to use his legs to pick up the first, but they're saying he was a yard short, so we're going to have to get it another way like this. There's rarely a moment we win a game by a lot. It's always such a tight finish, and going back to the option, they're going to stuff the run easily. This is the final drive of the game, so we can't afford to make mistakes, but they're doing well, and on 3rd and 12, they're running some zone coverage, but we're still going to get Bush, and that's not a first. I might regret this, but we are going to go for it, and Hall keeps it, so we are inside the 10. But to start the day, this game has stressed me out, and our corner route never got open. I can't believe that I didn't just throw an interception there and that we get in on the run, but everything worked out as we picked up our first win. Being 1-4 is not great for a freshman, but our record doesn't matter to these 2-star recruits, as almost all of them have already signed. Next up on our schedules, the Seminoles, and this is a tough match, but we have to win it too. I'm pretty worried about how it's going to go though, and I should have been, because we're losing by 17 with a minute left in this 3rd quarter. Even though we had a couple of seasons where we improved to 6-6, I'm starting to realize that we're headed back down to earth, and getting more realistic results is tough on us, but we should hold them to a field goal on this drive, so maybe it's not over yet. We have to score a touchdown, then get a stop, then score another touchdown, but we could see that happening, and with less than a minute and a half left, I'm really hoping that we can reach the end zone, but it hasn't been easy for us, and we break the press, so there we go. That's a great move from the wide receiver that transferred in a few years ago, and with all 3 of our timeouts remaining, we're able to kick it deep and hope that we get a stop. On 1st and 10, they're just going to hand it off to this left side, and we bring him down, so not all hope is lost yet, and we're all over their running back again, but he's not being marked as down, and you've got to be kidding. This should not be a 3rd manageable, and they have decided to throw the ball, but we lucked out that they're still having to punt it back to us, and I feel like we can get a touchdown in this time frame, especially if Bush gives us a decent return, and he does as he's fighting to the 33. Stat-wise, we should have the lead in this game, and it's just another battle that we've been in. I think we have to take our checkdowns and just hope that we get out of bounds. There's so much on the line right now. We really can't go back to being a 1-star school. We're going to get the first and slide, but even if we do pull off this comeback, there's no guarantee we're going to get 6 wins. We're going to need Sim to be on our side, and that man-to-man coverage didn't stick exactly, but the trip up just hurt us, because by the time I was trying to throw the ball, it was saying I had to hurdle, and with 6 seconds left, I'm just going to try to run it in with Hall. He was so tired, he almost didn't make it to the end zone, but this is just another example of us being clutch, and I cannot believe that we just got that win. Brandon Hall really is the future, and let's hope that he does the same thing in Sim. I'm trusting him through these 3 weeks, and we're going to come away with a win, but next up is number 6 Michigan, and that was never happening. Now we have the Miners on the road, who are only like a 60 overall team, and there is zero chance that we win all 3 of these final games to make a bowl. I don't get it. This is the best roster we've ever had, but we still can't win all 3 of the easier matchups that are on our schedule, and I just know that this will not go well for us. us. Ohio State's undefeated is the best team in our conference, so we might lose this one by 40 or 50, and it's such a shame. Penn State on the road's not going to be any better, but at least I shouldn't be fired either way. And now that I think about it, we haven't had a single season where we finish over 500, but I'll take that. Going 5-7's not the end of the world, but we really needed to beat the Miners. And in the game, only in the game. Our recruiting class also turned out pretty well, but I'm just not looking forward to going after 1-stars next season. And I thought Brandon Hall would have thrown for more touchdowns than 8. He rushed for another 9, so I guess that makes up for it. But our second best receiver didn't even have a touchdown catch, and for being the highest overall player we've ever had, I thought this wide receiver would have had a better career than this. Now Tom's leaving us along with all these other players, but he is projected to get drafted, and we're starting to put some players into the NFL. As for a transfer, Matt Washington isn't great, but I can't complain because it's not like our class was great anyway, and I have to figure out what I'm doing with all these athletes like Brian Thomas, who becomes an 80 overall halfback. There was a reason I went after this position so much, and that's because you can see overall jumps like this, and I'll continue to find the best fit for all of these players. We really needed a tight end, so thank goodness we got one with Cole Banks, and even though it said Kenny was a 64, on the offensive line he's a 68. Even if a couple of these guys only go over to fullback for us, I have found a spot on this team for almost every single player, and I think this is going to be the highest overall team that we've ever had. What it'll really come down to is how player progression plays out, and I'm seeing some very interesting improvements like this +8 to our right tackle. Now unfortunately Brandon Hall only went up by 1, but that's much better than losing 5 overalls like Ray Duckett did, and sometimes it's frustrating to see players regress that really shouldn't have. It does make it a lot easier to cut certain seniors off the team though, and just by looking at our team needs, I see that we're starting to get a lot of juniors again. That means I need to handle how we redshirt players a little bit smarter, and how our schedule's laid out is starting to drive me nuts because there's only a few teams to pick through every season that want to play in a non-conference game. The only thing keeping me going is we stayed at a 2-star prestige and our future outlook looks a lot better. So I don't have to go after 1-stars this season, it's still 2 stars. And I've learned to throw as many athletes on the board as I possibly can. Just by looking through some of these team overalls, I think we can take down both Washington and Ole Miss easily. So that makes me want to hop into the Alabama game for the first time ever. It would be insane if we somehow pulled this off, but we have to face a 93 and 92 overall quarterback and halfback, so I doubt that we're going to be able to stop them, but we do have a home crowd on our side wanting to see an upset. Considering they scored on their first drive, we're going to be going for it on every single 4th down, and we've moved it inside the red zone versus them where the pressure gets in so quick, but we're going to escape the pocket, and I think we have a touchdown, but they get the interception instead, and now we just have to make sure that we bring this guy down. I'm upset with that, but the ref is reviewing something, and it was just where this guy might have stepped out of bounds. That didn't matter at all, and even if we do finally score, it doesn't matter because we couldn't keep up with the Crimson Tide, and it's never great when you lose 35-10. I'm feeling a little bit better though after looking through the prospects that we're going after, because I found a freshman that's a 69 overall, and then these 2 fullbacks that also come in as freshmen and could play at tight end or wide receiver. If they decide to come here, we could even play them at running back, but half the battle's convincing them, and I probably made the wrong decision by hopping into that game against Alabama. At least after last season, I know for a fact that we can go 5-7 and maintain our 2-star prestige, so I'm not too worried, but we can't lose to Washington. I'm going to bring in both of the fullbacks on a visit, so that just adds to the pressure, and our goal is to rush for over 100 yards. We need to get guys like that to commit, because I've been chasing freshmen in their position for so long now, and I just realized this is the 12th season in the rebuild, so if we don't win a national championship, then I have to give away a copy of College Football 25. That's been a given for about the last 5 years now, but if we somehow finish the year 9-3, we could probably sneak into the playoffs, and Brian Thomas almost had the touchdown. I'll let Brandon Hall get it through the air instead, but nobody got open, so we'll use his legs. And if I'm being honest, I thought we'd be going into the half with a lead, not down by 4. You would think I'd say that their defense has played against us very well, but it's just been inaccurate throw after inaccurate throw from our quarterback. And after forcing a stop, this is probably our final attempt to drive down the field and tie things up at 17. They keep getting us in these 4th down situations, but the chop block is going to allow Hall to scramble and he gets a bit more. So that's exactly what you want to see, and then I'm going to go for the touchdown, which is a little bit off target. Somehow Jeremy Maynard was still able to snag it in though, and if we could just get them off the field, we'd be in such a good spot, but I couldn't stick with everybody. Here on 3rd and 8, I'm on the defensive line. I was hoping I could generate a little bit of pressure, but we've stopped them short at a 4th and 1, and after forcing them to punt the ball back to us, we've begun driving down the field where when I'm patient, I'm able to find players like Thomas who's in field goal range. I'd also like to point out that he's had a really good day on the ground, as he has over 100 rushing yards, so we're going to achieve the goal that the visiting fullbacks wanted us to, plus win, and from here on out, we can't lose another game. That's very unlikely with Brandon Hall having 3 interceptions interceptions. But at least 0-4 Ole Miss is next on our schedule, and since they haven't won yet, we're favored to come out on top. We also signed so many players, including both fullbacks that are coming in as freshmen. So I'm excited for that, and it wouldn't hurt us to go after another one if we could get him. The big moment though is on the road this week at Ole Miss, and we come out on top by 7, which means we've picked up another win, but I have to decide which of these games I want to be the last one that I play myself. Since both Florida State and Penn State are an 84, I think I have to skip the one against the ranked school, and I'm pretty much going to sim every game until the one against Penn State late in the year. It's a long way from now, so we have plenty of time to sign all these guys still, but I also want to point out that we've already brought in pretty much every player that I was targeting from the start. All that we have to focus on is these non-conference games, and I swear if we can't beat 68 overall Marshall on the road, it's just not meant to be. Number 23 Michigan's next, and at the Big House, I think we all know what to expect going into that game, but we've had a lot of closer matchups versus big schools, so that does give me some hope going forward. Against Middle Tennessee State, we win by 10, and then UTEP's only a 65, so we should be 5-6 going into the one against Penn State since we have to play Ohio State beforehand. But whether the Nittany Lions beat us or not, we're going to stay a 2-star school, and we just upset Ohio State. I can't believe we finally got an upset to go our way. I've been waiting for this moment, and the win against the Buckeyes was so big that there's nobody left on our recruiting board to put points on. Going into this final game of the season, if we beat the Nittany Lions, we're going to make our first bowl, and the pressure is on because I really want to do that. We've already finished 2 different years with 6 wins, so we know that's not enough to make a bowl in our conference, and that's why I'm so upset that with 4 minutes left in this game, we're down by 20, and I don't know why I tried to escape the pocket. We haven't been able to score much while their offense has had no issues all day, and I wish Charles Summers was graduating after this season. My expectation is we're not going to make a bowl, but we should still go up to at least a 3-star prestige, and we've been blessed. I see a bowl logo on that screen as we advance through the week. It's going to be us versus SMU, and I'm so excited, but Brandon Hall's stats don't get me as pumped up. Even though he threw for more touchdowns, pretty much every other stat he regressed in, and the only reason I'm not upset with him is when I was looking through the rushing yards, I saw that he led the team in them. Now it's time for our big bowl game moment, and I'm afraid if we lose this, we'll stay as a 2-star prestige. I don't think we have to worry about that though, because they have not stopped our offense yet in this game, and it's so much better playing against a team like them instead of in our conference. By the end of the third quarter, it's 35-3, and there was no chance of them coming back from that point. This win solidifies us as a 3-star school, and I guess I should mention that we are officially 12 years into this rebuild now, but I did just get an extension, and we all knew that I was going to have to give a copy of College Football 25 to a random commenter. I did not set that challenge for the right time frame, but I had no idea how long this rebuild would take, and it's weird to see another low 80 overall get drafted. I don't know why Kentucky's this far down in the rankings, but just to confirm our team prestige, it is up to 3 stars. So as much fun as I had finding all these prospects, next year we're going to be able to go after even better players, and I'm hoping this 79 overall fullback is something decent, but I guess a 73 halfback's the best we're getting. Brian Russell converts a lot better over to tight end at a 77, and then for the athletes, we already knew somebody would have a big jump like Pierre Williams to a 76. I didn't realize how many different running backs I've recruited though, so I couldn't put John Thomas there as well, and thankfully he can be a better wide receiver. We're in a weird spot too because we have a million DBs, and I didn't want to throw Steve Young into that mix, but it's the place where he performs best. With all the improvements we've made, this should be the best training results we've gotten yet, and it did not disappoint as I'm seeing a +6 on Brian Thomas and a +7 on our center. Brandon Hall again could have improved more because he only went up 3, but I'll take it, and figuring out who I want to cut is never an easy thing to do. It's been tough, but after going through the entire roster and getting rid of players, I think the last 2 have to be these JUCO wide receivers. And then on the redshirting side of things, I almost want to save one of these running backs for another year. It turns out we've lucked out again getting both Washington and Ole Miss on our schedule, and from a team needs perspective, we don't have many holes to fill, so I'm going after the best available. Of course, that has to include a ton of athletes because a lot of the time they become gyms or jump up a lot in overall, and I didn't realize how good we'd gotten until I saw our team overall. Right now we're an 86, 5 behind Alabama, and this season is a real chance for us to turn things around, but pretty much every team in our division's a higher overall than we are. Even teams like Ole Miss and Washington are starting to improve again, and that's why I'm hoping that I found some of the best true freshmen in the country, and then also I got some JUCOs that we could go after at the bottom of the board. We're set up for success even if we're going to start the season with a loss to Alabama, and that was close, so maybe I should play against LSU. I don't love to see that 2 of our linebackers are already injured, but I still think we're going to have a good season, especially if we could beat a ranked team this early. Just like last year though, we're still struggling with being consistent, and it's taken us a quarter and a half just to reach the end zone. They keep scoring, which is really putting the pressure on us, but I'm hoping we can respond back, and we'll just punch this in to get it back within 3 again. It's kind of driving me nuts that our defense cannot seem to get a stop, but I think we have our tight end deep on this play, and Brian Brian Russell, the freshman, just ran right by all those safeties. We'd miss an extra point, but we'd also force a turnover to get the ball back, so we're about to take the lead. And Jason Thompson's the one that puts us up. As time winds down, LSU has one final chance to tie things up with a field goal, but it's going to be 4th and 10. And I just hope that our man-to-man coverage doesn't get burnt deep. It looks like it's all good. There we go. That's how you take care of business, winning our 2nd game of the season. And it's about time we had a good start to the year again. Georgia would beat us after, but that was always expected. And what's really important is what happens at Washington. I'm not going to play that one since our visit week's going to be against Ole Miss, but I trust that we'll get the right result in sim, and we do by 1. I still don't know what to think about this team, but we should be going back to another bowl, and anything less than that would just be disappointing. With a minute left, we are up by 6, but unfortunately they do have the ball, so it would have been huge to get a closeout interception on that last play, and now they have a first. If we give up a touchdown now, losing this game, I'm going to be incredibly frustrated, but we're going to tackle them in bounds, and now they have no choice but to spike it. Here on 3rd and 2, it looks like they are going to go with like a wide receiver screen, but they never threw it, and our man-to-man coverage is not going to get over to Lane, so they're going to keep the drive alive. Time is winding down now, and we just need our coverage to stick. They're going to probably get out of bounds, but that allows us to get our defense set for this final throw, and we get the interception. We're going to take down Ole Miss in our visit week. It could have been prettier, but we still got the win, and we've landed 5 fantastic commits, with 3 of them being freshmen that'll be here for up to 4 to 5 years. Now's when I'd like to take a break with our schedule, but with all these conference games left, the only winnable one is probably Florida State, so this has to be the 3rd one that I play, and then after it, we're simming to the end of the season. Assuming everything goes the way it should, I think we'll be 7 and 5. And with a minute and a half left, Florida State doesn't have that much hope, as we've done such a great job defensively, until that catch, of course. Sometimes it's best if I just don't even say anything, and even though they'd eventually score, we're going to recover the onside kick, which means we're going to get the win over the Seminoles, and that'll make us 4 and 2. Now we've been left with some easier games, and if we lose any of the non-conference ones, I'm going to be pretty salty. Of course, Michigan would beat us after that, but we only need one more win to become bowl eligible, and even James Madison shouldn't be able to compete. It took a very long time to get the roster where it is right now, but we've done it, and now we can just advance all the way to the conference championship. I am a little surprised Louisiana Tech beat us, but it doesn't matter to me that we keep dropping games, because I wanted to lock in a 6-6 season to maintain our prestige, and we went 7 and 5. Aside from this left guard, we signed a lot of the guys that we wanted to, and I can't believe that we are in the top 10 in our conference. We're actually in the top half of the conference, and look down here at the bottom where Tennessee is sitting. That makes me happy as a Kentucky fan, but our bowl game's against a tough opponent, so I've just accepted if we lose it in sim, that is completely fine, and that's what happened. My main focus was maintaining our 3-star prestige. Brandon Hall also improved, so that's nice to see, but we are losing our best wide receiver. We're also going to be without Brian Thomas next year, which does hurt, but they keep on giving me more extensions, and they should be, because the quality of guys on this roster has vastly improved from what it used to be. For the first time, we put 3 different players into the NFL in one season, and that's going to help our player progression a ton, plus we're getting good freshman transfers. It was about time that we started to get put on the map like this, and with what we're building, it's going to be hard to fall back to a 1-star prestige again. Since we went 7 and 6, we're still at a 3-star, plus we had the 61st best class, but it should have been ranked way higher than that, because I got so many high overall players that are going to slot in nicely. We also have a huge senior class with our top 9 players all being seniors, and I had to figure out a couple answers for who could be our quarterback after we lose Brandon Hall this year. We have so many DBs at this point, I don't even know what to do with all of them, but I sure don't want to move more players over to that position, so I guess we're going to have more halfbacks and wide receivers instead. 95 speed there could be very useful though, and let's see how much all of our guys improved. Well, the snowball effect is certainly starting to take over, and this is the least amount of ranked teams that our conference has ever had. To only have 5 of them on our schedule is actually really nice, and from a redshirting standpoint, there are some positions that we're going to be pretty weak at. I'm not too worried about it though, because we should be able to easily replace them with 3 stars, and I found another punter that runs less than a 4.40. When it comes to recruiting now, we're able to get so many good prospects, and as a 91 overall team, we have to keep building on it. It's not enough to make us a championship contender, as over the next 4 years, we're barely going to crack the top 20, and that's because making the playoffs in this conference is brutal. There's so many 90+ teams still, and we're projected to be the 13th of 16. No one else's average rank has come close to touching the SEC's the entire time, and I'm ready to see if we can actually beat Alabama. Their offense is still really good, but we actually match up with them on paper, and it's so exciting to be in this position where we're actually good. Brandon Hall might not be the quarterback that's going to make us win it all, but he should be the guy that gets us some of our biggest wins yet, and what happened there? We've already missed an extra point, so I don't want to kick a field goal, and that turned out to be the smart decision. Now we're about to go up by 2 possessions against them, them, and they've spent the entire game trying to catch up versus us. But it's not going to happen because we keep scoring. Brian Russell might just be our best receiver on the team, and it took us 14 seasons in this rebuild, but we have finally beaten the Crimson Tide. This makes me really want to play our next one at LSU, but I think I have to be realistic, and winning at Death Valley is always going to be a tough task. It was only a 3-point loss though, so I'm very interested what happens versus Georgia, who's actually come out this season and beaten both Ohio State and Penn State. But it's another one we should probably sim. We're favored to win it, and that is what I like to see. Brandon Hall went off with 3 touchdowns through the air and then another one on the ground. And 14 years into this rebuild, we've been ranked in the top 25 for the first time. I know it's going to be very difficult to win this conference. There's so many good teams in it, but we have some easier matchups on the schedule too. And I'm hoping that this is the week we can pull away in some of these recruiting battles, because even though we're in the lead for a majority of the players that we want, some of them that's not the case, and our visit week is against Georgia Southern. A rivalry matchup is the perfect moment for this. Apparently Ole Miss is on the road next, but we can win at their place. We've done that before, and the fact that we've already locked up 3 of these 80 overalls is just incredible. The future is so bright. We're losing 22 seniors, but it really doesn't worry me that we are, because half of our starters are juniors, so we're going to have them for another year anyway. And we just dominated Ole Miss so bad, winning 59-10. I think we could still lose one other game and make the playoffs this season. So I have to be very strategic about how we handle the rest of these games, and I think I'm going to play against Texas and Ohio State. It's a little worrisome because teams like the Seminoles are good, but we've been getting win after win, so we're just going to advance it, and there's another. If we can just win out from here, we are guaranteed to make the SEC championship because we have the tiebreaker over Georgia, and this is really our chance to make a playoff run. Both of us currently have top 3 offenses in the country, and that's with us dealing with a few different injuries, so those could cause us to struggle, but I'm going to think optimistically and do my best to take down the Longhorns. They might have scored first, but that doesn't mean much, and with the 4th quarter approaching, we currently have a 4-point lead over Texas. We need another touchdown to go up by 2 possessions, but I'm confident we can punch it in, and with this run, we're down at the 1. Redshirting Brian Palmer was one of the best things that I could have done, and they have a long way to go to stay out there on the field. It is 3rd and 14, and there's no way that they're about to get close to picking it up. I have a feeling they're going to go for it, but we can shut that down. They're going with a halfback angle route, and come on. I just want to seal our win. That is all that we need in this situation. But now they're probably going to get the 2-point conversion, and we have to get multiple first downs to end this one, but that's never easy. They're starting to burn through their timeouts though, and our corner route to our tight end eventually gets open. Russell's able to bring it in. So from here, we just move the chains one final time, and that is going to get us the win over Texas. That makes us 6-1 this year, and I wish our conference wasn't so difficult. Michigan's 2-3, but we still have to play them on the road. So for all I know, we're about to pick up our 2nd loss of the year, but we just got by them. That's going to push us up the rankings even farther, and halfback Brian Palmer's been so good that he's currently in the Heisman race. He also has a couple of easier opponents coming up, and if we lost to either the Miners or Kent State, I would be very upset. Those were pretty much freebies for us, and I only went after 15 recruits this season, but I'm proud to say that we have signed every single one of them, and that's a very good thing. It leaves us with 2 more matchups on our schedule against Ohio State and then Penn State, but those are pretty much 2 of the best teams in our division, so these are going to be difficult. For the first time this year, we have to play somebody that's a higher overall than us, and if we lost, it would probably be considered as a good one, but I can't risk missing the playoffs now. We have climbed too far to fall, and I don't know how long it would take us to get in a position like this again with the current roster. I mean, we're pretty good, but the sim results have definitely gone in our favor, and all I want to do is get a touchdown here, but they've done such a good job at holding us. I figured that was how the quarter would end, but we're still going up 3-0, which isn't terrible, and then we'd get an interception setting us up for the first touchdown of the day. I made the mistake of not planting my feet before throwing it though, so now we're going for it on 4th and 1, and Palmer got stuck. Ever since that moment, we haven't gotten ahead by more than 3 points, but our defense is doing well, and I think we forced them to punt it again. There's no reason to do that when there's 2.5 minutes left, but I'm not going to complain that the computer's dumb because we have to beat the Buckeyes, and this is not going to be a punt return. We are not fast enough to do it with Thompson. Just by looking at these stats, you could say that we've dominated, but in order to get the win, we have to pick up a couple of first downs, and that's not happening. I'm going to go for it on 4th and 6 though. I cannot risk them getting the ball back and then scoring a game-winning touchdown. This is much better, and now we can run out the rest of the clock. It's always nice to beat the Buckeyes, and we're just 1 game away from making our first conference championship. Brandon Hall, the seniors, led us here. Look at all the finalists we have for all of these different awards, and just soak in the position we're currently in. Even if Penn State beat us, we're in the conference championship now, so I guess they've lost a couple of games, and I think we'd be in the playoffs either way, so I don't mind just advancing to it as we get the win. Now we have to beat Notre Dame in it if we want to get ourselves a first round bye in the playoffs, but I think we can make that happen, and we could also get Brandon Hall a Heisman Trophy. We have somehow become championship contenders, and this is the longest it's ever taken me to get to that point. 14 years years and we still might not be able to win it all. But because of all the good teams that we've beaten, the odds are definitely in our favor. And approaching halftime, our defense forced an interception, so we're about to go up 21-3. And I don't think the Irish are going to be able to come back from this. They would need a miracle in these final 10 seconds, and Kennedy is going to get the throw off, but we are also about to pick it. And with a 2-possession lead, it's safe to say it's over. I am so proud of Appalachian State right now, and this is the best I've felt about a rebuild in a while. It took so much to make it here, but we didn't win the Heisman Trophy, and that's fine because we're going to win a lot of other awards. Our center got both the Remington and the Outland, but that was actually it, mainly because we didn't have one dominant wide receiver. In the rushing game, we had both Brandon Hall and Brian Palmer, but the main stat that stood out to me was Hall only threw 1 interception the entire year, and the first round bye should help us through these playoffs. We only have to win 3 more games for a championship, and we can't stay away from schools that were in our conference. USC was in it, so they're one of the best teams in the country, but we've still worked it all the way down the field on them on our first drive, and I'm going for this on 4th and 1. We're going to fake the handoff, keep it with Hall, and he is going to get to the 1. From here, it shouldn't be too hard to just punch it in, but it is, and that's why I always try to throw it in this situation, but they almost got a sack. It could be a long day for us, but eventually we got to reach the end zone, and Brian Palmer was able to get there just by stretching his arms across. Through the first half, we've done a pretty good job of maintaining that lead, but that's knocked down, so we're going to have to settle for a field goal for the second time already, and the Trojans have put themselves in a pretty good position because before the end of the second quarter, they should get another field goal. It's a shame that we let them work it all the way down the field against us, and now they're going out of bounds, but apparently that was the end of the half, so we're going to have a 10-point lead. I can't stress enough how important that is because it's going to increase our chance of winning this by a lot, and I wish Brandon Hall could just hit his targets more consistently because he's about to take the sack, but he breaks it and now he's going down at the 2. We seem to be in complete control of this game, and we're now one step closer to winning our first national championship with App State. There's only 2 more teams that could get in our way, and it looks like Arizona State's one of them. That's a relief to see since they're an 83 overall, and they're not going to be on the same level as our team. They play in a much weaker conference, which only helps us because we're already flying down the field versus their defense, and the only thing holding us back is drops. I'm being very patient though. I'm sure we'll eventually get in, and of course that's the one we hold on to with Mark Baker, but I'll take it. Ideally, we're already going to know that we've won this one by halftime, and so far we're on pace for that, but we're going to have to hit a field goal if we don't get into the end zone, and we fumbled it away. You have got to be kidding me. That is the last thing that we needed to happen there, and they're about to take it all the way back too. That's what's kept this game close throughout the entire first half, but no matter what, we're still going to have a lead, and we even got ourselves in field goal range to go back up by 7. By the fourth quarter, how every possession ends is so important, and we don't have the speed at running back, but Palmer almost got the first, so I feel like we have to go for it on 4th and inches, and we'll take it. They got to know they're in trouble by now, and I don't want to take any of those routes. I wanted to play this safe, but if we don't get in, it defeats the purpose of being aggressive, and their man-to-man coverage is sticking like glue until right there. Now they find themselves trailing by 14 points with not much time left. We should be getting that pick, and even though we didn't, it would eventually be 4th and 15 where they decided to run the ball. We're so close to completing this rebuild, and all we have to do is beat Notre Dame again. We already did it in the conference championship, so we can enter this pretty confidently, and after 14 years, it's all coming down to this moment. So far through the quarter, both of our offenses have scored a touchdown, but we're looking to get our second of the day, and it looks like with man-to-man coverage, we should be able to place this ball in the hands of Baker. Now's our chance to get a stop and start pulling away from the Irish, which we'll do, and they have to punt it. We're taking full advantage of that as I've had 2 clock on for a bit, and I want this to be the final drive of the first half, but they stop us. Since we've let the clock run down, I think we're going to be good. It will be 17-7 at the half, but as time winds down in the final 2 minutes, we were never able to come away with an easy win. They've played us a lot better the second time around, and they're also threatening to score if our defense can't hold on, so I'm expecting everybody to lock in with just a minute left in this game, and I'm starting to get a little bit worried because if they score a touchdown, we're not going to have that much time left to respond. Here we go. It all comes down to this, and they've decided to go with the option, but we knocked it out of bounds, and this huge hit from our safety just won the entire game for us. For a split second, I thought we were in a little bit of trouble, but Notre Dame's out of timeouts, and we are national champions. It has never taken me that long to win one before, but that set of challenges from the start was brutal, and what a climb to the top it's been. We started 1-47, but then I got this 5th head coach hired, and he hasn't been fired since. That's how it ended up. Putting way more players into the NFL than I have during any other season in this rebuild, and even though I have to give away a copy of College Football 25 to a random commenter, at least I ended my final rebuild on NCAA Football 14 with a bang. And again, thank you to Spades Plus for sponsoring this video. This is just a reminder that you can download the app using the first link in my description or the QR code on screen to receive 10,000 coins upon arrival.